If you use a Mac, the important part of Calif's Mythos AI demo is not that a chatbot magically broke Apple on its own. The important part is that Calif, a Palo Alto security firm, says its expert researchers used Anthropic's unreleased Claude Mythos Preview to compress a serious macOS kernel exploit on Apple's new M5 hardware into 5 days. That is the viewer promise here. This is not a movie version of AI hacking. It is a real test of what happens when skilled security teams get a frontier model that can help with the slow, technical middle of vulnerability work. Calif's claim is specific enough to take seriously, even while the public still cannot audit the full exploit. The company says its chain targets macOS 26.4.1 on bare metal M5 hardware with kernel memory integrity enforcement enabled. It says the starting point is a local, unprivileged user, and the endpoint is a root shell. That matters because this is not being described as a remote drive-by attack from a random web page. It also matters because root access is the point where an attacker can move from limited access into full machine control. Calif says it is withholding the technical details until Apple ships fixes, and it says a 55-page technical report will come later. The reason this story lands harder than a routine vulnerability headline is Apple's memory integrity enforcement. Apple has presented MIE as a hardware and software answer to memory corruption, the bug family behind many serious exploit chains. Apple's own security blog describes the work as a half-decade effort and its most significant memory safety upgrade in consumer operating systems. So Calif is not claiming it found a bug in some forgotten corner of the Mac. It is claiming that a new research workflow moved quickly against one of Apple's most important new defenses. The careful read is also the more useful one. Calif is not saying Mythos woke up, independently discovered an exploit, and handed humans a finished weapon. Calif says Mythos Preview helped identify bugs and assisted during exploit development. That framing makes the model a force multiplier, not a replacement for human expertise. The practical shift is that the bottleneck may move. Security risk is no longer just about how many elite researchers exist. It is about how much more work each researcher can produce when model assistance speeds up searching, reasoning, prototyping, and debugging. That cuts both ways. The near-term winners are top-tier research teams and defensive labs that can pair strong human judgment with a model capable of handling difficult security work. Anthropic has described Claude Mythos Preview as a general-purpose model with unusually strong cybersecurity capability, and has framed Project Glasswing around coordinating defensive use across critical software. In the best version of this future, vendors get better bug reports faster. Serious flaws are found before attackers exploit them, and patches move more quickly into customer devices. The exposed side is every software vendor that assumed exploit discovery would remain limited by the old labor curve. If models make good researchers faster, then the volume of credible reports can rise. Palo Alto Networks already pointed to this pressure in its May 2026 security update, saying one advisory covered 26 CVEs representing 75 issues, compared with a usual monthly volume of less than 5 CVEs, and that most of those findings came from frontier AI model scanning. Calif's Apple claim gives that broader trend a recognizable target: a new Mac defense, new Apple silicon, and a named frontier model. For a normal Mac user, the most realistic risk picture is not someone instantly taking over every M5 Mac from across the internet. The scenario to understand is a chain. Imagine a stolen developer laptop, a malicious installer, or a compromised low-privilege account. A local privilege escalation can be the step that turns that foothold into root. That is why defenders care about bugs that sound boring compared with remote hacks. In a real intrusion, the local step can decide whether the attacker stays boxed in or owns the machine. For Apple, the immediate job is narrow and high stakes. Review the report, validate whether the chain works as described, patch the relevant issue if it does, and give customers and defenders enough signal in release notes to understand the exposure. Apple-focused coverage citing the Wall Street Journal says Apple is reviewing Calif's report, which is exactly the stage this story is in. The public evidence is not complete yet, so the honest stance is neither panic nor dismissal. The proof object to watch is not a dramatic terminal screenshot. It is Apple's patch notes, followed by Calif's promised 55-page report. If Apple's update names or quietly fixes a relevant macOS kernel, memory corruption, MIE, or local privilege escalation issue, and Calif later publishes enough detail for other experts to assess the chain, this becomes an early case study in AI-compressed exploit research against modern hardware-backed defenses. If the report never substantiates the chain, or if the patch trail does not line up, the story gets weaker. Until then, the practical question is simple. Did Apple's new Mac Shield fail once, or did Mythos show that the cost of testing every shield just dropped?